Colgate Tooth Powder presents The Theater of Romance. Tonight, Colgate Tooth Powder brings you Clifton Webb in The Man Who Came to Dinner. Tonight and every Tuesday night, Colgate Tooth Powder brings you The Theater of Romance with your favorite stars and your favorite stories and plays. And here is your host to tell you about tonight's presentation by George S. Kaufman and Moth Hart, The Man Who Came to Dinner, starring Clifton Webb.
Once upon a time, according to Kaufman and Hart, there was a very famous writer and critic who, in the course of a lecture tour, visited a small town in Ohio. There, he accepted an invitation to dinner at the home of a Mr. and Mrs. Stanley. Just as he was leaving their house, he slipped on a piece of ice and fell down the front steps, landing hard upon his very famous hips. The rest is history.
Mr. Stanley, I am suing you for 150 my activities as best I can. I shall require the exclusive use of this room, as well as that drafty sewer which you call the library. I want no one to come in or out while I am in this room.
What do you mean, sir?
But we have to go up the stairs to get to our rooms, Mr. Whiteside.
Isn't there a back entrance?
Why, yes.
I shall also require room for my secretary, Miss Cutler. I shall have a great many incoming and outgoing calls, so please use the telephone as little as possible. I sleep until noon and require absolute quiet throughout the house until that hour. There will be 5 for lunch today. Where's the cook?
Mr. Whiteside, if I may interrupt for a moment.
You may not, sir. And now, will you all leave quietly, please, or must I ask Miss Cutler to pass among you with a baseball bat?
Oh,
Now,
dear.
look here, Mr. Whiteside.
There is nothing to discuss, sir. Considering the damage I have suffered at your hands, I'm asking very little. Good day.
Come on, dear.
Yes, Ernest.
Well, I must say you certainly behaved with all your accustomed grace and charm.
Maggie, being my secretary does not give you any divine prerogative to criticize my manners.
When I finally give up this job, I may write a book about it all. Cavalcade of insults, or Through the Years with Prince Charming.
Mr. Whiteside.
Good Lord, what is this?
My name is Harriet Stanley. I green against the pine trees. I remembered what you had written about Holly. It was the nicest present I could bring you. Here, I'll just put it in your lap. Goodbye, Mr. Whiteside.
Was that an hallucination or a woman?
That was Mr. Stanley's sister, Harriet. I met her when I arrived. She's quite strange.
Strange. She's right out of The Hound of the Baskervilles. You know, I've seen that face before somewhere.
Nonsense. You couldn't have.
There's nobody home. The Stanleys have been arrested for counterfeiting. Go away.
Good morning, Mr. Whiteside. I'm Bert Jefferson of the Massalia Journal.
Maggie, get rid of him.
I'm sorry, Mr. Whiteside is seeing no one, so would you please excuse us? Good day.
Mr. Whiteside seems to be sitting up and taking notice.
I'm afraid he isn't taking notice of the Massalia Journal. Do you mind?
You know, if I'm going to be insulted, I'd like it to be by Mr. Whiteside himself. I never did like road companies.
Touche, if I ever heard one. And in Massalia, too, Maggie, dear.
How about an interview, Mr. Whiteside?
I never give them. Go away.
Mr. Whiteside, if I don't get this interview, I'd lose my job. You used to be a newspaper man yourself. You know what editors are like. Well, mine's the toughest one that ever lived.
Who is this editor? You?
In a word, yes.
You get the interview.
In the future, Sherry, I wish you'd let me know when you don't want to talk to people. I'll usher them right in.
This aging ingenue, Mr. Jefferson, I retain in my employ only because she is the sole support of her two-headed brother.
I see. Well, Mr. Whiteside, I understand you're quite a cribbage player. If you're in need of a partner, I'll be available.
Go get your set.
Right away.
And take Maggie along for the ride. I want a nap.
That would be a pleasure.
Don't speak too soon.
Sherry always does his best to make sure everyone will like him.
All right, now get out of here. Get out of here, both of you. You're upsetting my hip.
Come on, Maggie.
Now, see here, Mr. Whiteside, I want to talk to
Now,
you.
Ernest?
I have stood all that I'm going to stand from you.
Mr. Stanley? Mr. Stanley? May I remind you once more that I'm not a willing guest in this house. I am informed by my doctor that I must remain quiet for another 10 days. If, however, you insist on my leaving before that, thereby causing me to suffer a relapse, I shall sue you for every additional day that I am held inactive, which will amount, I assure you, to a very tidy sum. And now, please go away. I'd like to take my nap.
You know, Mr. Whiteside, I'm almost sorry we ever invited you to dinner.
Use Colgate tooth powder. Keep smiling just right. Use it each morning and use it at night. Don't take a chance with your romance. Use Colgate tooth powder.
Love is not blind. Love sharpens all the senses, especially a man's. It makes him acutely aware of every little thing about you. Everything. So don't let a little breath of trouble ruin your romance. What to do? Brush your teeth night and morning and before every date with Colgate tooth powder. Yes, night and morning and before every date. Because scientific tests have definitely proved that in 7 cases out of 10, Colgate tooth powder instantly stops unpleasing breath that originates in the mouth. Colgate tooth powder cleans your breath as it cleans your teeth. As for cleaning, no dentifrice at any price will clean your teeth more quickly and thoroughly than Colgate tooth powder. Remember the name, Colgate tooth powder, with the accent on powder.
Now the second act of The Man Who Came to Dinner, starring Clifton Webb. Several days later, Sheridan Whiteside is talking to Maggie Cutler, who's just come in after spending the afternoon with Bert Jefferson.
Good evening, Miss Cutler. Don't look now, but it's 7 o'clock.
I know. Sherry, Bert has written a play. He read it to me this afternoon. It just cries for Catherine Cornell. If you like it, will you send it to her, Sherry?
No, I will not. And while we're on the subject of Mr. Jefferson, you might ask him if he wouldn't like to pay your salary, since he takes up all of your time.
Oh, stop behaving like a spoiled child.
Don't take that patronizing tone with me, you flea-bitten Cleopatra. I'm sick and tired of your sneaking out like some lovesick high school girl every time my back is turned.
Sherry, I'm afraid you've hit the nail on the head. I am in love. Mr. Jefferson doesn't know it yet, but I'm going to try my darndest to marry him. You'd better look around for someone to replace me.
Replace you?
Uh-huh. Oh, here I am, a hard-bitten old cynic, behaving like True Story magazine and liking it.
We're leaving here tomorrow. Hip or no hip, we're leaving here tomorrow. Get me a train schedule and start packing. I'll pull you out of this, Miss Stardust. You are drugging yourself into this fantasy. And before you become completely anesthetized, I shall do everything in my power to bring you to your senses.
Sheridan Whiteside, don't you dare try any of your...
Maggie, how can you talk that way after all these years of camaraderie? You whom I've loved and cherished and raised like a father. Me? Tricks? Hello, Lorraine? How's my blossom girl? Good. I'm glad I was able to catch you in New York. Now, listen closely because I can't talk too loud. I've great news for you. I've discovered a wonderful play with an enchanting part in it for you. Cornell will give her eye teeth to play it. But I think you can land it if you get out here right away and turn up the charm. Now, wait, let me tell you. The author is a young newspaper man in this town. He's young and attractive and just your dish, my pet. All right, now here's what I want you to do. Get on the first train and... Lorraine, my blossom girl.
Oh, Sherry, my sweet. Oh, darling. Look at that poor, sweet, tormented face.
Here, let me kiss it.
Mm. Oh, Sherry, my sweet. I want to cry.
All right. You made a very nice entrance, dear. Now relax.
Well, I got the first train out after you phoned me. Now, Tell me all about the new playwright.
Sherry, Bert and I thought you might like to play some cribbage, Sherry. Hello, Lorraine.
Hello, Mr. Whiteside.
Hello, Maggie. I knew you must be around somewhere. How are you, sweet?
Isn't this wonderful, Maggie? Blossom Girl just dropped in out of the blue and surprised us.
Isn't anybody going to introduce me?
Oh, of course, of course. Lorraine, this is Mr. Bert Jefferson, of whom I was just speaking. Miss Lorraine Sheldon.
How do you do, Miss Sheldon?
Why, Mr. Jefferson, you don't look like a newspaper man. Mm-mm. You don't look like a newspaper man at all.
Really?
Mm-mm.
I thought it was written all over me in neon light.
Oh, no, not at all. I should have said you were an aviator or an explorer or something. They have that same kind of dash about them.
If you wish to hear the story of his life, Lorraine, kindly do so in your own time. Maggie and I have work to do.
He's the world's rudest man, isn't he? Can I drop you, Mr. Jefferson? I'm going down to the hotel.
Well, thanks, but I've got my car. Suppose I drop you.
Oh, would you? Oh, that'd be lovely. We'll send the taxi off. See you in a little while, Sherry. Bye, Maggie.
Goodbye.
Maggie, darling, I'll call you later to see if Sherry will let you off to see a movie.
All right, Bert.
Come on, Mr. Jefferson. I want to hear more about this charming little town, and I want to know a good deal about you, too.
Trix? You? After all these years of camaraderie? Oh, no, not you.
Trix, how dare you? Lorraine Sheldon just happened to stop here.
I know, Sherry, I know. Well, it was beautiful dreaming while it lasted.
Maggie, it's after 11. The last show's over.
I know. I didn't really think Bert would phone. I just hoped I might be wrong. Sherry, I'm taking the midnight train. I'm leaving.
You're doing nothing of the kind. Now, see here.
Hello, Miss Stanley.
Dear Mr. Whiteside, I've been waiting and waiting for an opportunity to give you this picture of me as I used to be. I thought you might like it.
I appreciate your thinking of me, Miss Stanley. This is very thoughtful of you. I'm very fond of these old photographs. Thank you very much. When I get back to town, I shall send you a little gift.
Will you? Oh, thank you, Mr. Whiteside. I shall treasure it. Well, I must get back upstairs. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Look at this picture. Now I know where I've seen that face before. Now I know. Mr. Stanley had better not get too uppish with me.
What are you talking about?
It's a secret, Maggie. That is, it's a secret until I need to tell it.
Sherry, on that table you'll find your keys and your driving license. It's all over and you won. I hope it's a great deal of satisfaction to you.
Come. What are you trying to do? Make me feel like a great, big, naughty boy? Honestly, Maggie, sometimes you can be very annoying.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. I'm a little high, but I can explain everything. Hi, Maggie. Hi, Miss Whiteside. Shake hands with a successful playwright. Miss Sheldon thinks the play is wonderful. Isn't that wonderful, Miss Whiteside?
Jefferson, I think you ought to go home, don't you?
What? No, it's the biggest day fixing. Do it in 3 weeks. She's going to take me to a little place she's got in Lake Placid, just for 3 weeks. Going to work on the play together. Isn't that wonderful?
Look, Bert, I suggest...
Thanks for everything. Good night, Maggie.
Good night, Bert. I love him so terribly. Oh, Sherry, why did you do it? Why did you do it?
See here, Whiteside, I want to talk to you.
Not now, Mr. Stanley. Can't you see you're walking right into the middle of an emotional disturbance?
Emotions. I have reached the limit of all human endurance. I have an octopus from William Beebe in my cellar, a crate of penguins from Admiral Byrd in my parlor, and at this very moment my wife is signing for 3 alligators from heaven knows who. My home has become a madhouse. Now, I just talked to Dr. Bradley, and he tells me you're well enough to leave. So get your things together and go, or I'll have you thrown out. Good night, sir.
Oh, dear. Nothing else could possibly happen. Nothing else.
I love you madly. Do you hear what I said, madly? Kiss me. Don't be afraid of my passion. Kiss me. I can feel the hot blood pounding through your varicose veins.
Mr. Whiteside.
Banjo!
Well, this is a surprise. Banjo, Banjo, in the name of heaven, put my nurse down.
Hello, Whiteside. Will you sign for this package, please?
Banjo, put that woman down. That's my nurse, you mental delinquent.
She fell in love with me the minute I came in the door.
I did not. Put me down.
Well, all right, if that's the way you feel about it.
What are you doing here in Massalia anyway, Banjo?
Well, I was on my way from Hollywood to New York. My plane was forced down because of the fog, so I thought I'd drop in on you. I can only stay a few minutes.
You needn't stand there looking like a floating custard, Miss Preen. Please go.
I am going, Mr. Whiteside, permanently. I'll leave my address on your bureau. You can send me a check. I am not only walking out on this case, Mr. Whiteside. I am leaving the nursing profession. If Florence Nightingale had nursed you, she'd have married Jack the Ripper. Good day.
I always bring out the best in people.
Well, if you don't mind, I have some packing to do, too. See you in Hollywood, Banjo.
Yeah. Hey, what's wrong with Maggie?
Banjo, I need help, and I need it quickly. For the first time in my life, I've been something of a heel.
It should happen to every man sometime in his life. Tell me about it.
Well, you see, Maggie met a man.
Well, all we have to do is get rid of Lorraine.
But how?
Well, now, I'll tell you. Outside the door, I saw a life-size mummy case that someone sent you. Now, I'll push that in here while you call Lorraine. Maybe I can take her along in that.
Oh, it's fantastic. But how will you get her inside?
That's the only trouble. But call her in here anyway.
Lorraine?
Yes, Sheriff. So, Banjo?
Open it, Banjo. Let's find out.
All right.
Step in, Lorraine. You know, my dear, someday you must play St. Joan.
Really, Sherry?
Ah, yes, indeed. There's almost a halo over you now. Face front in that case and cross your hands over your chest.
You're so silly, Sherry.
My dear, don't make light of these things. There's a strange beauty about you tonight, Lorraine. Pure Da Vinci. Right, Banjo?
Right, Sherry.
Lock it quick.
Oh, it's locked. Oh, boy, it worked. Oh, what do you know?
Oh, will she be all right in there?
Oh, sure, she can breathe easy. I'll let her out as soon as we get on the plane. Marvelous soundproofing, these old mummy cases. You can't hear a thing.
Well, Mr. Whiteside, are you preparing to leave? Because I am preparing to call the police.
Ah, there you are, Mr. Stanley. Would you mind helping my friend downstairs with this mummy case?
I will do nothing of the kind.
Oh, I think you will, Mr. Stanley.
Oh, you do?
Or shall I inform my radio audience on my next broadcast that your sister, Harriet Stanley, is none other than the famous Harriet Sedley.
What?
Who murdered her mother and father with an axe 25 years ago in Gloucester, Massachusetts.
How did you find that out, Mr. Whiteside?
Your sister was kind enough to bring me a picture of herself when she was young. Murders are quite a hobby of mine, remember? Mr. Stanley will help you down, Banjo.
What are Banjo and Mr. Stanley doing with that mummy case, Sherry?
I've been playing Cupid, Maggie. A little out of character for me, but I've been doing all right at it. The field is clear for you now, and you have my blessing.
Where's Lorraine?
She's gone for a little trip with Banjo.
In the mummy case? Oh, Sherry. Oh, Sherry, that's wonderful.
It's over now. Can I come back?
Ah, yes. We've just been talking about you, Bert. Maggie, give me my hat and coat and your railroad ticket. I'm leaving for New York.
Well, before you go, is it all right if I ask Maggie to marry me?
Oh, darling. Darling, of course it is.
Who asked you? Mr. Jefferson, I will take the matter into consideration.
And I'll marry you while he's considering.
Sabotage.
Darling, darling.
Now, will you two please stop cooing until after I'm gone? I've got to get out of here. Bert, I'm taking your play to Catherine Cornell. Be good to Maggie. I love her very much.
Sherry, you're wonderful.
Well, yes, I am. I must admit it. My hat and coat. Come on now, hurry. Goodbye, Mr. Stanley. Mr. Stanley. I don't think it hasn't been pleasant, because it hasn't.
Goodbye, Mr. Whiteside.
Goodbye, Mr. Whiteside.
I'll help you down the front steps.
You take one arm and I'll take the other.
Ah, This fresh air smells wonderful.
Careful now. The steps are still slippery.
Watch out, you clumsy fools. Watch out.
Oh!
Miss Preen! Miss Preen! Get that nurse back. Get that doctor. Oh, my hip, my hip. Get me back in the house. Get me back. I tell you, confound you and your invitation to dinner. Stanley, I'm suing you for $350,000.
Use Colgate tooth powder. Keep smiling just right. Use it each morning and use it at night to help you rate with every date. Use Colgate tooth powder.
Young lady, remember that evening? Remember how he looked at you? How close he came as though he was going to kiss you but didn't? Perhaps a little breath of trouble ruined your romance. It's happened so many times. So don't let a breath of trouble, I mean unpleasant breath, spoil your chance for romance. I'll tell you what. Brush your teeth night and morning and before every date with Colgate tooth powder. The tooth powder that cleans your teeth as it cleans your breath. Scientific tests prove that Colgate tooth powder, in 7 cases out of 10, instantly stops unpleasing breath that originates in the mouth. Colgate tooth powder cleans your breath as it cleans your teeth. Money can't buy a dentifrice that will clean your teeth better than Colgate tooth powder. Remember the name, Colgate tooth powder, with the accent on powder.
In tonight's play, Clifton Webb starred as Sheridan Whiteside. Vicky Vola appeared as Maggie, and Richard Colmer played Bert. The Man Who Came to Dinner by George S. Kaufman and Moss Hart was adapted especially for this program by Gene Holloway. The music was composed and conducted by Ben Ludlow, and the entire production was directed by Mark Loeb.
Next week, it is our pleasure to bring you one of the greatest plays of our American stage. The story of a youthful romance threatened by a mother's selfish love for her son. The Silver Cord by Sidney Howard. Join us again next Tuesday night.
Halo, everybody, halo. Halo with the shampoo that glorifies your hair. So halo, everybody, halo.
Yes, use Halo shampoo if you want naturally bright and beautiful hair. For Halo contains no soap, therefore leaves no dulling film. The first time you use Halo, see how your hair sparkles and gleams with natural brilliance. How the deep, natural color looks brighter, glossier. Even in hardest water, Halo makes oceans of rich, fragrant lather. Halo quickly carries away loose dandruff and dirt. Needs no lemon or vinegar rinse. Say hello to Halo and goodbye to dulling soap film. Get Halo shampoo at any cosmetic counter.
So halo, everybody, halo. Halo shampoo, halo.
This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting.
Young men of New York, if you like the adventure of flying, sign up as a Navy Air crewman. If you're 17 through 26, physically fit and unmarried, contact the nearest naval recruiting station. You'll be trained to do a job now and prepare yourself for a successful future. WABC, New York.
Use Colgate tooth powder. Keep smiling just right. Use it each morning and use it at night.
Colgate Tooth Powder presents The Theater of Romance. Tonight, Colgate Tooth Powder brings you Claude Rains in The Citadel. Tonight and every Tuesday night, Colgate Tooth Powder brings you The Theater of Romance with your favorite stars and your favorite stories and plays. And here is your host to tell you about tonight's presentation, A.J. Cronin's great story, The Citadel, starring Claude Rains and featuring Gertrude Warner.
Good evening. The story which we bring you is one doctor's story about another doctor. Dr. Cronin has found for his hero, Andrew Manson, not only romance in his life work, but also romance in his love for Christine. Meet Andrew Manson, M.D.
Whenever anyone asks me, how did you and Christine meet, my mind goes back across the years to Brunelli, and I see myself young and shy and anxious, Walking down the dirty streets of that miserable little town, 24, fledgling doctor. And I see myself once more standing in Christine's classroom, looking at her for the first time, as mad at her as I'd ever been mad at anybody. Miss Barlow, I understand that you took it upon yourself to say that Idris Howell could return to school today. And I told him to stay home because he'd been exposed to measles.
Yes, I did. His mother was at her wit's end. I feel reasonably sure he's not going to infect anyone.
You have no right to feel reasonably sure of anything. You're a school teacher and a woman.
I was not aware that doctors and men were the only authorities in the world. Now, Dr. Manson, it's time for class. Good day.
Good day, Miss Barlow. I fully meant to report it to the school authorities. I walked at least 20 blocks before I began to think that it wasn't a very manly or gentlemanly thing to report a woman. I walked 20 more before I decided to give it a second chance. By the time I'd walked 3 miles out into the country, I was wondering how I would ever manage to make her forgive me. And by the time I walked 3 miles back, I was wondering how I would ever be able to persuade her to marry me. You know, sometimes love comes like that. It was a fortnight before I saw her again. Good evening, Miss Barlow.
Good evening, Dr. Manson.
It's pretty late for you to be going home from school, isn't it?
I had some papers to correct. It's pretty late for you to be walking by the school, isn't it?
I wasn't exactly walking by. As a matter of fact, I've been standing here for 2 hours. I knew that sooner or later you'd have to come out, and I thought that when you did, you wouldn't mind letting me walk along with you, since we are going in the same general direction.
Are we going in the same general direction, Dr. Manson?
Mm-hmm. We are. I owe you an apology. You were right to take just the stand you did about Idris. After all, sometimes the spirit of the law is more important than the letter of it. Please forgive me.
Oh, there's nothing to forgive. We both lost our tempers. It was nice of you to wait for me. You're lonely, aren't you, Dr. Manson?
Very. But I didn't know it until I met you. I'm still groping, still feeling my way here, you know. I was only brought here to care for Dr. Page's practice during his illness. I must begin to look around in the neighboring towns for a place for myself.
Tell me something, Dr. Manson. Everyone has a citadel. What's yours?
My citadel?
Mm.
I think my citadel is knowledge. If I reach it, I'll have learned something more about saving lives than is known now. I'll have taken the knowledge that was passed on to me and studied it and worked with it and found out something new to add to it and pass it on to the next student.
That's a very splendid citadel.
Well, I didn't mean to preach a sermon. Say, we must be almost to your house.
We've already passed it.
Why didn't you tell me?
I didn't notice. You see, I had my eyes on the citadel, and I was blinded by the light.
I saw her often. After that night, we walked home together. We talked our way through a long springtime and into the summer. Early in September, I was appointed to the medical staff of the small mining town of Avalor. I could hardly wait to tell Christine about it. Christine, I got a job, the most wonderful job at Avalor. I was up seeing the committee today. 500 a year and a house, Christine. Oh, darling, will you marry me? It's a wonderful place, Christine, and I can have the job if I have a wife. I know I'm not half good enough for you, and it's only fair to tell you that, but if you'll have me, I'll try very hard to make you happy. You see, I love you very much.
Oh, darling, don't you know? You're the man I've been waiting for all my life.
Christine. I carried her across the threshold. And into the years, she seemed to be more beautiful, more intelligent, more generous than any woman that had ever lived. Now, looking back on those days at Avalor is like looking back on springtime. There must have been rain and snow, but I have no recollection of it. All I remember is sun and blue skies and vivid hillsides and a singing happiness. One night she came into my study.
Andrew, are you fond of your name?
My name? Well, I don't know. I suppose I am. Andrew is my father's name, you know.
Would you like to call your son Andrew?
My son?
Yes, of course. You're going to have a son.
Darling.
I wouldn't dream of having a daughter first. It's quite impractical.
Christine. Darling. It's so wonderful I can hardly believe it. It's really true?
Now, isn't that a fine question for a doctor? Oh, darling, all evening I've been sitting out there rocking my dreams. I've scrubbed him and kissed him and spanked him and seen him through college.
My dear, would you think me unbearably sentimental if I said I love you very much?
Oh, Andrew, I'm so happy. Sometimes I find myself praying, dear God, let it be forever. Just like this.
Let it be forever. Just like this. Nothing lasts forever. Happiness least of all. When grief came, it came with a swift, devastating blow that shocked and numbed and killed. I was just leaving a patient's house and...
Dr. Manson! Dr. Manson! You have to come to the hospital at once. It's your wife. She was walking across one of the footbridges and she fell. Dr. Hogue is tending her.
I'm sorry, Manson. I did everything I could. The baby was born dead.
Christine.
She's all right now. You can go in. But, Manson,
Yes, Dr. Hogue. What is it?
She'll never be able to have another baby.
Mm-hmm. I see. She's all right.
She'll be back on her feet in a few days.
Thank you, Doctor. I know you did all you could. Darling, how do you feel?
I feel... Oh, Andrew.
No. Don't cry. Don't cry, darling. Don't cry.
My arms ache so. My arms feel so empty. And my throat is choked with lullabies. All the lullabies I've been waiting all my life to sing. I keep telling myself, I'll have another baby next year. I'll have another baby, but it doesn't help. Maybe it's because I don't believe it.
Darling, you're making me feel very badly. You're making me feel that I've failed somehow, that just being with me is not enough. I do love this baby, but I'm afraid not as much as I should. I'm afraid there really isn't room in my heart for anyone but you, Christine. We have each other. Isn't it enough that we have each other?
Yes, dear. Of course it is. I'm sorry, I'm all right now. There never will be another baby, will there, Andrew?
I haven't said that.
Yes, you have, darling. Yes, you have.
Use Colgate tooth powder. Keep smiling just right. Use it each morning and use it at night. Don't take a chance with your romance. Use Colgate tooth powder.
Young lady, remember this message from Colgate Tooth Powder. Maybe tonight that certain someone will see you in his dreams. Yes, romance may be just around the corner for you. But take care that when you turn that corner, no little breath of trouble will come your way. What to do? Brush your teeth night and morning and before every date with Colgate Tooth Powder. The tooth powder that cleans your breath as it cleans your teeth. Yes, night and morning and before every date. Because scientific tests have definitely proved that in 7 cases out of 10, Colgate tooth powder instantly stops unpleasing breath that originates in the mouth. As for cleaning, no dentifrice at any price will clean your teeth more quickly and thoroughly than Colgate tooth powder. Remember the name, Colgate tooth powder, with the accent on powder.
Colgate tooth powder brings you the second act of The Citadel, starring Claude Rains as Dr. Andrew Manson, with Gertrude Warner as Christine.
After Christine was well again, we couldn't bear to live in Aberlour any longer, not in Aberlour, where our son would have gone to school and grown to manhood. We went to London. I bought the practice of Dr. Foy, who had died shortly before. It wasn't a very lucrative practice, and after months of struggle, months of pinching pennies and watching Christine become more and more haggard, I began to grow bitter. You know, poverty eats away at ideals, and mine began to seem both naive and foolish. I was ready then to listen to the advice of an old friend of my intern days.
Look here, Manson, you've got to get wise to yourself. Get some wealthy patients and charge them a good figure. Why, the greater part of my income comes from hypochondriacs. Now, let me make you a proposition. You're a doctor, I'm a surgeon. You recommend me to your patients, and I'll recommend you to mine. We'll split the profits, and they won't be small. Think it over.
After he left, I walked around and around the office, looking at the shabby furniture, the shabby walls. I thought of Dr. Ivory's fashionable home and car and of his sleek, well-groomed appearance, and finally I walked over to the mirror and looked at myself. And I thought, you're a fool. That's what you are. You're a fool. I called Ivor the next day, and we did very well together. Mrs. Lawrence, about your daughter's tonsils, I'd like to suggest a colleague of mine. He's expensive, but he's one of the finest surgeons in London. I know you want Sylvia to have the best. Christine, I've thought of something you could do to help me save time. I've prepared a couple of stock mixtures. I'd like you to fill the bottles, label, and wrap them. They're simple prescriptions that cannot hurt anybody.
Will they help them?
They're only for people who aren't really sick, but who enjoy thinking they are and taking medicine.
Andrew.
Well, I'm tired of poverty and squalor. It's not living, Christine.
The climb to a citadel is never easy.
What a lot of hot air I used to talk. What a fool I was.
What a good doctor you were. And what a great doctor you might have been.
Well, you might at least try to understand, Christine.
I do understand, Andrew, and I'm disappointed.
All right, Christine, all right. If that's the way it's going to be, then that's the way it's going to be. I went on sharing cases with Ivor for months. I might have gone on forever. As it was, I went on too long. I took him one case too many. It was an abdominal case, a simple one, a cyst that needed removing. It was the first real case I'd given him, although I didn't realize it until I stood there in a cold sweat, watching a man die through sheer inefficient bungling, watching my patient die. I was stunned and a little sick at my stomach. I was very cool about it when we met in his office a few minutes later.
Well, that's over. I'm sorry, Manson, but these things happen in the best regulated circles, you know.
Oh, no, they don't. You killed him. You're not a surgeon. You never were. You never will be a surgeon. You're the worst butcher I've ever seen in my life. You're a murderer, and so am I.
Oh, come now. Pull yourself together. You'll see this differently when you cool down and think about it. Well, everyone loses a patient now and then. It's the law of average.
Is it? Goodbye, Ivory.
Where are you going?
I'm going home. I'm going home. Christine, I think I'm through with medicine. I've no right to practice anymore.
You have no right to stop. It's the only way you can make up for this mistake. Oh, you're a good doctor, Andrew, and I believe with all my heart that one day you'll be a great one. You must go on.
Darling, I did something this afternoon after the operation that ethically I had no right to do. I went down to the ward and I told Mary Anderson to ask for a release from the hospital.
She's your TB case from Aberlour, isn't she?
Yes, her father was the dentist there. I haven't been satisfied with her progress under Dr. Madison, and after she got her release, I took her out in the country to Stillman's new clinic.
But Stillman isn't a doctor.
Well, he's made a life study of tuberculosis. He's the greatest man in the world in his field. She needs an operation. I think he's the one man that might save her. Now, Christine, that's more important than ethics, isn't it? If he does save her, it might help make up for today.
It also might mean losing your license to practice.
Well, I think Mary's life is worth that risk.
Then I think you're right to take it.
Darling, Darling, I've come home, you know. Can we go back to what we were? Can it be the same?
No, Andrew. We can never go back to what we were. I don't even think we want to. Sometimes separation and sorrow bring people a new understanding and a new bond. What we have now is better than anything we've ever had, my darling.
I love you, Christine. I love you very much. Now, I knew that Dr. Ivory would do everything he could to have me disgraced, and that he wouldn't miss so glowing an opportunity. The letter from the Penal Cases Committee of the Medical Society came about a month later. I was notified that on August the 15th, I had assisted one Richard Stillman, an unregistered person practicing in a department of medicine, and that I was therefore guilty of infamous conduct in a professional respect. My trial was set for November the 10th. The prosecuting attorney hammered at me for hours.
Dr. Manson, you say you had no knowledge that your conduct was in any degree infamous. Yet you did know that Mr. Stillman was not a qualified gentleman.
Yes. I knew he wasn't a doctor.
Ah, I see. Yet even that did not deter you.
No. Even that did not deter me. Mr. Boone, I've listened to you asking a great many questions. Will you allow me to ask you just one? Have you ever heard of Louis Pasteur?
Of course. Who hasn't?
Exactly, who hasn't? You are probably unaware of the fact, Mr. Boone. Perhaps you will allow me to tell you that Louis Pasteur, the greatest figure of all scientific medicine, was not a doctor. Nor was Ehrlich, the man who gave medicine the best and most specific remedy in its entire history. Forgive me for reminding you of these elementary facts, Mr. Boone. They may show you that every man fighting disease who hasn't got his name on the register isn't necessarily a knave or a fool.
Yes, those are illustrious names. No one can deny that. Surely you don't compare Stillman with them?
Why not? They're only illustrious because they're dead. Stillman is a great and original scientific thinker. He's done more for tuberculosis than any man living today. I think he should be supported, not persecuted.
You're forgetting yourself, Dr. Manson.
Gentlemen, I've listened to the pleading that's been going on today on my behalf, and all the time I've been asking myself what harm I've done. Now, if we go on trying to make out that everything wrong outside the profession and everything is right within, it means the death of scientific progress. We must give our pioneers a chance. I know I've made plenty of mistakes and bad mistakes, and I regret them. But I made no mistake with Richard Stillman. Mary Anderson is cured. Now you can do with me what you want.
Andrew Manson, the counsel is of the opinion that you were acting in good faith and were sincerely desirous of complying with the spirit of the law, demanding a high standard of professional conduct. I have to inform you accordingly that the council has not seen fit to direct the registrar to erase your name.
Good evening, Dr. Manson. Isn't it pretty late for you to be going home from the medical chambers?
Why, good evening, Mrs. Manson. Isn't it pretty late for you to be walking by the medical chambers?
I wasn't exactly walking by. As a matter of fact, I was just sort of standing here. I knew sooner or later you'd have to come out, and I thought when you did, you wouldn't mind letting me walk along with you, since we are going in the same direction.
A very fine piece of feminine logic. Would you care to enlighten me in what general direction we are going?
I think perhaps we're going to a town someplace. A small town like Aberlour. Some town that's in the general direction of a citadel.
Mm-hmm. That's where we're going. And this time, nothing will get us off our course. This time, we're going to keep climbing until we reach it. Give me your arm, Mrs. Manson. Let us be on our way.
it at night to help you wait with every date. Use Colgate tooth powder.
So you're married, and you adore your wife. Mm-hmm. Why, you bring her flowers and candy even when it's not her birthday. You know, even a loving wife can't bring herself to mention a little breath of trouble. I mean, unpleasing breath to her husband. Well, don't let that little breath of trouble hurt your happy marriage. I'll tell you what. Brush your teeth night and morning and before every date with Colgate tooth powder. The tooth powder that cleans your breath as it cleans your teeth. Scientific tests prove that Colgate tooth powder, in 7 cases out of 10, instantly stops unpleasing breath that originates in the mouth. Money can't buy a dentifrice that will clean your teeth better than Colgate tooth powder. Remember the name, Colgate tooth powder, with the accent on powder.
Tonight, Claude Rains starred as Andrew, and Gertrude Warner played Christine. The Citadel by A.J. Cronin was adapted especially for this program by Gene Holloway. The music was composed and conducted by Ben Ludlow, and the entire production was directed by Mark Slobe.
Next week, Walter Abel comes to star on the Theater of Romance in one of the most dramatic, most exalting love stories of modern times, The Enchanted Cottage. Mr. Abel will play Oliver Ashford, a war hero who can find no peace until at last he finds beauty and unexpected happiness with a girl everyone else sees as the plainest of the plain in an enchanted cottage. Join us again next Tuesday night.
Halo, everybody, halo. Halo is the shampoo that glorifies your hair. So halo, everybody, halo.
Yes, use Halo shampoo if you want naturally bright and beautiful hair. For Halo contains no soap, therefore leaves no dulling film. The first time you use Halo, see how your hair sparkles and gleams with natural brilliance. How the deep natural color looks brighter, glossier. Even in hardest water, Halo makes oceans of rich, fragrant lather. Halo quickly carries away loose dandruff and dirt. Needs no lemon or vinegar rinse. Say hello to Halo and goodbye to dulling soap film. Get Halo shampoo at any cosmetic counter.
So halo, everybody, halo. Halo shampoo, halo.
Until next Tuesday night, when Colgate Tooth Powder's Theater of Romance brings you Walter Abel in The Enchanted Cottage, this is your host saying good night and wishing you love, happiness, and romance.
This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Use Colgate tooth powder. Keep smiling just right. Use it each morning and use it at night.
Colgate Tooth Powder presents The Theater of Romance. Tonight's Colgate Tooth Powder brings you Martha Scott in The Blue Danube. Tonight and every Tuesday night, Colgate Tooth Powder brings you The Theater of Romance with your favorite stars and your favorite stories and plays. And here is your host to tell you about tonight's presentation, The Blue Danube, starring Martha Scott.
Vienna, 1870. The streets were crowded with the thousands who were there to pay tribute along the route of a funeral procession. One would think it was a king who was carried in such glory and mourned with such sorrow. But it was not a king. It was a little old lady who had loved Vienna and her sons and a man who had broken her heart. Her name, Anna Streim Strauss.
So this is what it is. This is the beginning of death. To ride like this through the streets you've loved, to hear the dark, pain-thudding notes of final requiem. No, that's not the music I want to hear. That is not the music. Yes, that is it. That is the music. Oh, yes, that is the Vienna I loved and taught my children to love. That is Vienna, music and laughter and beauty. Oh, this is the way to go. Play it faster, play it louder, play it faster, play it louder. Oh, there's the cafe where I met my Johann. I must stop for a moment. I must go in. Yes, it was here. I was young then, and I used to sit at that corner table night after night alone, just to hear Johann Strauss play his violin. Oh, my darling, you were the most famous conductor and composer in Vienna. A tall, black-haired man who could tuck a violin under your chin with a gesture that captured 1,000 hearts. All Vienna was dancing to your music. All Vienna was singing your praises, and I was hopelessly, helplessly, completely in love. Oh, Johann, what a magical night.
Take my arm, Anna. Let's walk down closer to the river. I want the Danube to sing you a love song while I tell you what's in my heart. You're happy tonight, aren't you, Anna?
Happy. Oh, Johann.
You look like a little girl at her first party. Like Cinderella at the ball. You look like someone that I've been hunting for a long time. I'm very much in love with you, little Anna.
Oh, Johann,
Will you marry me, Anna? Will you marry me?
Your hand in my heart, and never was happy again.
You know, Strauss and Anna Strime are marrying today. I wonder what will ever come of that match.
They're very much in love. They may be happy.
Happy? Why, Strauss has been in and out of love half a dozen times in the past year. You surely do not think he will stay in love this time.
Listen to the bells, my darling.
They're beautiful.
They're telling everyone in Vienna that you're my wife.
I love you so much. I'll try very hard to make you happy.
I am happy. And I'm very, very proud of you. You're the most beautiful girl in Austria, and you're mine.
Johann, is that why you love me?
What better reason is there for a man who worships beauty?
But, Johann, I will not always be beautiful. I will not always be young.
My foolish little darling. What kind of thoughts are those for your wedding day? Come now, kiss me. And be content that I do love you without asking why.
How many years together did we actually have? I've forgotten. I, who thought I would never forget a word or a gesture, have forgotten so much. But I do remember that even at first, I could not hold you.
Anna, will you help me pack my bags, please, darling? I'm going to play a concert in Paris. Think of it, Anna. Paris.
Am I to go with you, Johann?
No, I shall be so busy with concerts and appearances. It's best that you remain here.
Oh, I see. You were off for months at a time, following the lights and the glitter, wanting always applause and more applause. You would come home for a few pulse-pounding weeks, and then you'd be off again, leaving me always more lonely. I came to feel completely alone. You were not with me even the night our first son was born.
Here is your son, Anna. What will you call him?
I looked at that bundle resting against my breast. A black-eyed bundle with the face of an angel, and suddenly he smiled, and it was your smile, and I gave him your name. His name is Johann, I said. And the name was music to me. And there was music in that room, such as I had never heard in my life. Music that was a shadow cast before. And then you came home on a visit.
Anna, let's go out and have dinner someplace where it's gay. This house is depressing.
The baby's been feverish, Johann. I can't leave him. Let me fix dinner here.
Anna, I don't see you very much. And it seems to me that you could make some effort to please me when I do come home. Or is your baby more important than your husband?
Johann, you don't mean that.
I do mean it. Either you will come out with me or I will go out alone. Now, which is it to be, Anna?
Evidently, you are to go out alone, Johann.
Very well.
I, who had never learned to cry, learned then. The years that followed were the slow years that stole my youth from me. You went away again and again on concert tours. Joseph and Eduard were born, sturdy little boys with your eyes and your trick of smiling, and young Johann began to write pretty little waltzes. At last, when Johann was 13, you came home, ill and close to death. He was learning to play the violin, a slender, sensitive boy with one great ambition.
Mother, is this how Father holds the violin? Is this the way he holds the bow, Mother?
Put the head a little higher, Johann. Yes. Now, throw your shoulders back. Hold in your tummy. Oh, gracious. That's much better.
Oh, Mother, I want so much to be like Father.
Let me hear the piece again, Johann.
Yes.
Here, what is all this noise? What are you doing with that violin? Answer me.
I am practicing to be like you, Father.
Never mind being like me. You're going to be a businessman, not a musician. Here, give me that violin.
Oh,
Mother.
How can you be so cruel? The boy has great talent. He's written some beautiful music.
I will not have him wasting his time writing music. Let him spend his time on the schoolwork instead of this trash. One musician's enough in the family. I'll write the music. Johann, you hear that? Now, you're never to touch a violin or a piano again. You have no talent. I will not tolerate such a waste of time. Now go wash your face, boy, and go to your lessons. Well, Anna, why are you staring at me like that? You're looking as though you'd never seen me before in your life.
I don't believe I ever have.
Use Colgate tooth powder. Keep smiling just right. Use it each morning and use it at night. Don't take a chance with your romance. Use Colgate tooth powder.
Young lady, remember this message from Colgate tooth powder. When the mere touch of his hand makes your heart beat madly, take it from me, that's love. But when he doesn't call, doesn't write, doesn't tell you why, well, that's too bad. Do you think that a little breath of trouble, unpleasing breath, cooled your romance? It's happened to thousands without their knowing. If I were you, I wouldn't let that little breath of trouble get a look in. What to do? Brush your teeth night and morning and before every date with Colgate tooth powder. Yes, night and morning and before every date. Because scientific tests have definitely proved that in 7 cases out of 10, Colgate tooth powder instantly stops unpleasing breath that originates in the mouth. Colgate tooth powder cleans your breath as it cleans your teeth. As for cleaning, no dentifrice at any price will clean your teeth more quickly and thoroughly than Colgate tooth powder. Remember the name, Colgate tooth powder, with the accent on powder.
Colgate tooth powder brings you the second act of The Blue Danube, starring Martha Scott as Anna Strauss.
I will not have him wasting his time writing music. One musician is enough in the family. I walked all night back and forth, up and down, with those words ringing in my ears. The son must not compete with the father. The king must not be challenged. Son or father, you were my heart and my love and my happiness, but he He was my son in my life. His talent needed encouragement. But I needed you. Your lips, the knowledge that I'd pleased you and that you would be mine again. You were my love and my heart, but he was my son and my honor. And so I walked the watches of the night while my small son slept, and music yet unwritten filled his dreams and fell like a shadow across my heart. When morning came, I awakened my son.
Good morning, Mother. Oh, it's early, isn't it?
I held him close, loving desperately the sleepy small boy look of him. Then he got up and dressed. We went out, hand in hand, into the bright morning to find a new violin and a place for him to study. And we walked to music, he and I together. All the music he was to write. And the morning had a shining glory. Spring came again to Vienna. Once the spring had been like wine we'd drunk together, but you had forgotten that. I taught my heart not to mind. I kept my hand steady. I did not cry. I choked down the words that burned and bled inside me. And then, one day, you were well again.
Anna, I have been thinking things over, and I really don't see much point in you and I trying to stay together anymore. We have nothing in common.
We have children, Johann.
They are your children. They don't like me any more than you do. From the moment your first child was born, Anna, you started drawing away from me. Each one took a little more and left a little less. Until now, everything's gone between us.
That's not true, Johann. I have always loved you. I love you still. Oh, Johann, I pity you so.
You pity me? You pity me?
Yes, because you've never really grown up. You've never learned that a man can't remain a boy forever, that dances and flirtations in the springtime are for the young. As a man grows older, he lives in his children, and he finds his happiness in his youth and them. One morning, Johann, before you die, you will awake and discover that you have nothing.
I would prefer nothing to what I have now.
Then you are very right to leave. You and I severed by divorce, that marriage long since over. You married a young and beautiful milliner and set her up in a handsome house. I lived the days for my children, never thinking that I myself was directing my young Johann's footsteps. Johann the Younger made his debut in October when he was 19.
Have you heard? Strauss's son is leading his own orchestra in a concert. They say his father is furious. That's one concert I wouldn't miss for the world.
People came by the thousands to hear this son of a famous father. But the father did not come. Here and there in the crowd, I glimpsed the faces of his father's friends. They would be a cold audience. I began to pray. Dear God, please let him be good enough. And then he came out. He raised his bow and he began to play, and thus entered history. His music was winging to the stars and took with it every heart that listened. But I, with a sudden coldness, heard a little boy saying, "Someday I will be like my father." The years that followed were set to music, the most beautiful music in the world, written by my son. I was proud, but I missed him. He, too, belonged to the world, and then one day...
Mrs. Strauss, have you heard? Your husband is dead. One of the children told me. He died last night, and his wife fled. No one will go near the body for fear of catching the scarlet fever.
Johann dead. Johann dead. Oh, no, that could not be true. That could not be true. I ran through the streets to your house. I went into that splendid mansion that I'd never entered. I went through the empty, shrouded rooms until I found you. And I gathered you to my heart and wept over you. And for that hour, you were mine. And only mine. And though you had refused my love, you did not refuse my grief. They came soon to honor you. There was a great procession, and all Vienna mourned you. I went home to an empty house, tired, bereft now of dreams, bereft of all but my memories. And the house was full of music, but it mocked me. My husband had followed it, and my sons, Johann and Josef and Eduard, and I was still the outsider looking on. And suddenly I hated music. I sat there with music swirling around me, drowning me, closing me in, hammering at me. Music that laughed and lilted and caressed. The happiest music that had ever been written, but which had stripped me of all my happiness. I've forgotten now how many years later it was that Johann gave a great concert. I went feeling ill at ease and out of place. When they came to the final number of the program, Johann stepped forward.
Many people have told my brothers and me how much we are like our father. We accept that as a compliment and thank you. But we would like you to know about our mother, who went without food, who went without new clothes so that we could have a little more, and who gave her entire life to us. All the honor you of Vienna have paid us belongs to her, for all the music we have ever written or ever will write is hers. And now I have written a new composition that we shall play for you, and for the little mother who has always been our inspiration.
Some moments are too beautiful to be born. I sat there listening to my lifetime. And at last I was happy as I had never been, for suddenly I saw that I was not on the outside. I was a part of them and a part of their music. And I saw a meaning and a purpose. My grief and bitterness had given birth to music and immortality. And I see at last that life has been very good to me. Very good indeed. For the music of my sons will sing of the laughter and the love and the gaiety of Vienna through whatever times may come, through whatever shadows, for it is a gift from God. And that which has been the cause of all my unhappiness is finally my greatest happiness.
Keep smiling just right. Use it each morning and use it at night to help you rate with every date. Use Colgate tooth powder.
Young man, they say a happy marriage is one where the husband gives and the wife forgives. But do you think it fair to expect your wife to forgive unpleasing breath? Of course, you might be quite unaware that a little breath of trouble has come between you. You may not even suspect that you have unpleasing breath. I'll tell you what, don't take a chance. What to do? Brush your teeth night and morning and before every date with Colgate tooth powder. Yes, night and morning and before every date. Because scientific tests have definitely proved that in 7 cases out of 10, the mouth, Colgate tooth powder cleans your breath as it cleans your teeth. As for cleaning, no dentifrice at any price will clean your teeth more quickly and thoroughly than Colgate tooth powder. Remember the name, Colgate tooth powder, with the accent on powder.
In tonight's play, Martha Scott starred as Anna Strime Strauss, with Carl Swenson as Johann Strauss. The Blue Danube was written especially for this program by Gene Holloway. The music was arranged and conducted by Charles Paul, and the entire production was directed by Mark Slowe. Next week, one of the most moving love stories of modern times comes to you on the Theater of Romance, when we will present a special dramatic version of Alice Duer Miller's great narrative poem, The White Cliffs. Join us again next Tuesday, won't you?
Halo, everybody, halo. Halo is the shampoo that glorifies your hair, so halo, everybody, halo.
Yes, use Halo shampoo if you want naturally bright and beautiful hair, for Halo contains no soap, therefore leaves no dulling film. The first time you use Halo, see how your hair sparkles and gleams with natural brilliance, how the deep natural color looks brighter, glossier. Even in hardest water, Halo makes oceans of rich, fragrant lather. Halo quickly carries away loose dandruff and dirt, needs no lemon or vinegar rinse. Say hello to Halo and goodbye to dulling soap film. Get Halo shampoo at any cosmetic counter.
So halo, everybody, halo. Halo shampoo, halo.
Until next Tuesday night, when Colgate Tooth Powder's Theater of Romance brings you Alice Duer Miller's immortal love story, The White Cliffs, this is your host saying good night and wishing you love, happiness, and romance.
Ladies and gentlemen, war is the costliest undertaking in human history. And to wind up this costliest of all wars, our government needs a colossal sum of money. But this year, there will be only 2 war loans instead of 3. However, because of the terrific goal which has been set, we will have to lend Uncle Sam as much in these 2 loans as we lent last year in 3. So we must all buy a bigger share of extra bonds than we ever bought before. 27 million American men and women enrolled in the payroll savings plan are now boosting their bond purchases for April, May, and June. When the 7th War Loan Drive opens officially, these smart buyers will have a head start. Part of their extra bonds will already be paid for. How about you, Mr. and Mrs. America? How about you starting to buy those extra bonds now? Remember, your war bonds are the safest, soundest investment on earth. They are Uncle Sam's IOU to return you at maturity $4 for every 3 you invest. Let's start buying now for the 7th War Loan. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting.
Colgate Tooth Powder presents The Theater of Romance. Tonight, Colgate Tooth Powder brings you a special dramatic version of Alice Duer Miller's The White Cliffs, starring Constance Cummings. Tonight and every Tuesday night, Colgate Tooth Powder brings you the Theater of Romance with your favorite stars and your favorite stories and plays.
Use Colgate Tooth Powder. Keep smiling just right. Use it each morning and use it at night.
One of the most notable stories to come from this war has been the late Alice Duer Miller's dramatic poem, The White Cliffs. It's our pleasure to bring it to you now in a dramatized adaptation by Jean Holloway, starring Constance Cummings as Susan, with Carl Swenson as John.
I have loved England dearly and deeply since that first morning, shining and pure, the white cliffs of Dover I saw rising steeply out of the sea that once made her secure. 1914, early May. London was crowded and rich and gay. It happened the first evening I was there. Someone was giving a ball in Belgrave Square. A light blue carpet on the stair, tall young footmen everywhere. I went up the stairs between them all, strange and frightened and shy and small. And as I entered the ballroom door, someone beside me turned and smiled and, looking down at me, said,
"Hello. I fancy you're Bertie's Australian cousin, Nancy. He told me to tell you that he'd be late at the Foreign Office and not to wait supper for him, but to go with me and try to behave as if I were he."
I should have told him on the spot that I had no cousin, that I was not Australian Nancy, but my name was Susan Dunn, that I came from a small white town on a deep-cut bay in the smallest state in the USA. I meant to tell him, but changed my mind. I needed a friend, and he seemed kind. So I put my gloved hand into his glove, and we danced together and fell in love.
I've never danced so well with anyone before.
I haven't either.
Are you going to be in England long?
A week.
A week? Well, we shall have to crowd a lot into that. A week. I'm sorry to hear that.
Why?
Because I'll never be able to say all the things I want to say in a week.
How long would you need to say all those things?
I might need a lifetime.
It was a wonder ball, and you were very kind, John. I've never had such fun before. I'm sorry it's over.
Oh, there'll be other balls.
Not like this one. I'm so glad we decided to walk back to the hotel.
You know, I picked the longest possible way back to your hotel. I'm very reluctant to let go of this evening. Let's sit here on this bench a moment. There are some things I find I must say to you.
There's something I must say to you.
We've only known one another a few hours, and yet it seems that I've known you always. You know, when I was 7 and had my first crush on a girl, that girl was you. And when I was 15, I worshipped the ground a certain young lady of 20 walked upon, and she was you, too. You were the first girl I took dancing, the first girl I kissed, and the girl I was always talking about whenever I had anything at all to say about marriage.
Oh, John.
The moment you looked up at me and smiled, I thought, at last. And when we started to dance, and I held you in my arms, I knew that I'd never let you go.
Please, you don't know anything about me.
I know I love you, and that's all I need to know.
Please, you must listen to me. I'm not what you think, or who you think I am. I've been acting a lie all evening. I'm not Bertie's Australian cousin, Nancy. I don't even know Bertie. I should have told you at once, but I couldn't.
Oh, my darling. I knew you weren't Nancy the moment you began to speak.
You knew?
Of course I did. Darling, you haven't the right accent for an Australian Nancy. What is your name?
Susan Dunn.
Hello, Susan Dunn. Welcome to England. Welcome to my home and to my heart.
They showed me all London, Johnny and his friends. They took me to the country for long weekends. I never was so happy. I never had such fun. I stayed many weeks in England instead of just one.
Susan, dear, this is my mother. Mother, this is Miss Dunn.
How do you do, my dear? John has told us all so much about you. It's such a pleasure to have you visit us here in Devon.
Thank you. It was so nice of you to ask me.
Show Miss Dunn the house, John, if she'd care to see it.
Oh, I'd love to see it. And I'd love to meet the family ghost. John told me all about him.
I'm sure I've never seen him, but I did hear him once outside my door. It was the night John's father died.
Perhaps I don't really want to meet him after all.
You know, Miss Dunn, it's hard to believe you're an American. You know, really, you don't speak like one.
She seemed to think she'd said a thing both courteous and flattering. I answered, though my wrists were weak with anger. Not at all. I speak, at least I've always thought this true, as educated people do in any country, even mine.
Really?
I saw her head inclined. I saw her ready to assert Americans are easily hurt. And suddenly, I was heartsick and lonely for my own people.
John, dear, a letter just came in the post for you.
Oh, thank you, Mother. Well, that's odd that Susan's writing. I was going to meet her in London for dinner tonight. Perhaps she can't make it.
Well, open it and see.
Dear John, I'm going home. My train leaves at break of day. I'm going home to those who think the way I think and speak as I do. I could not spoil our happy memories with the stress and strain of parting. I'm going after her, Mother.
You're sure about this girl, John?
Very sure.
Then bring her home with you.
The Southampton landing, porters neat and quick, and a young man standing, leaning on his stick.
Oh, Susan, 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 did you really think I'd ever let you go away?
Oh, no, John, you shouldn't have come.
Susan, do you love me?
Love you? You don't have to ask me that. I never tried to hide it.
Darling, it doesn't matter that you're from one country and I'm from another. All that matters is that at last we've found each other. Will you marry me, darling? Will you please marry me?
Johnny and I were married. England then had been a week at war, and all the men wore uniform as English people can, unconscious of it. We went down to Devon in a warm summer rain, knowing that our happiness might never come again. I not forgetting till death do us part, was outrageously happy, with death in my heart.
I want to know everything there is to know about you. Who was your first beau?
My first beau was named Jimmy O'Brien. His hair was as red as his name, and he was covered with freckles. But he loved me madly.
Oh, well, how old were you?
4.
Oh, how old was he?
40. John, I don't want you to go to war. I know it's selfish. I know I shouldn't say these things, but I can't help it. I love you. I'm frightened, John.
I know, darling. I don't want to go to war either. But when the things you respect and love are threatened, there's nothing else that you can do. Each generation must protect the honor of its country. You see, it's a trust that's been handed down from father to son. We aren't a warlike people, but if we must fight, we will, however little taste we have for it.
I understand.
I know you do.
I understand, and I love you very much. I settled down in Devon when Johnny went to France. Such a tame ending to a great romance. 2 lonely women with nothing much to do but get to know each other. She did, and I did, too.
Susan, dear, those bandages must be rolled tighter. Better do them again.
All of them?
Oh, I'm afraid so. It's the regulation, you know.
Oh, I've been working on them all day. I can't work on them anymore. I'm cold and tired and cross.
It's colder in the trenches.
I'm sorry. Of course it is. I'll do them over.
I'll help you.
No, you've enough to do. I'll try to have them finished by the time you're ready to go to the hospital.
It isn't much of a world to be young in, my dear. I know that. But we have to do everything we can. Everything we can.
I think I shall always remember until I die her face that day in December, when in a hospital ward together she and I were writing letters to the wounded men and dying, writing and crying over their wounds. Suddenly, looking up, I saw the old vicar moving like fate down the hospital ward until he stood still beside her where she sat at the bed.
Dear friend, come home. I have tragic news.
She looked straight at him without a spasm of fear, her face not stern nor masked.
Is it Percy or John?
The eldest, Percy.
Percy, I'm needed here. I can't go until every letter is written. The dead must wait on the living. This is my work. I must stay.
And she did. The whole long day.
In a moment, Colgate tooth powder will bring you the second act of The White Cliffs. But first, young lady, remember this message from Colgate tooth powder. Love binds 2 hearts together, but a little breath of trouble can pull them apart. So if you're looking for romance, be very sure that no little breath of trouble, unpleasing breath, will come between you and your heart's desire. Just do this. Brush your teeth night and morning and before every date with Colgate tooth powder. For Colgate tooth powder cleans your breath as it cleans your teeth. Yes, night and morning and before every date. Because scientific tests have definitely proved that in 7 cases out of 10, Colgate tooth powder instantly stops unpleasing breath that originates in the mouth. As for cleaning, no dentifrice at any price will clean your teeth more quickly and thoroughly than Colgate tooth powder. Remember the name, Colgate tooth powder. with the accent on powder. Colgate Tooth Powder brings you the second part of The White Cliff, starring Constance Cummings.
Out of the dark and dearth of happiness on earth, out of a world inured to death and pain, on a fair spring morn to me a son was born, and hope was born. The future lived again. And John came home on leave, and all was joy and thankfulness to me. John.
Susan.
Oh, John, it's so wonderful to be able to see you again, to reach out and touch you. Oh, John, I've been so lonely without you.
You weren't without me, not for a moment. I carried you in my heart wherever I went.
I've been thinking about names. I'd like to call him John after you. Or if not that, then I'd rather...
But, darling, the eldest son is always called Percy.
Well, now look. I didn't ask to call him Hiram after my father.
Yes, but the eldest son is always called Percy, dear.
But I hate the name Percy. There's so many better names. Richard, or Ronald, or Peter, or Jack, or James, or Ian.
But the eldest son is always called Percy, dear.
Oh, John, not Percy. I won't have him called Percy. He's my son, too. And I positively will not have him going through life with a name like Percy.
Percy, Richard, Peter, I baptize thee in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Amen.
John went back to his company, and I could do nothing but ache and long that my country, peaceful, rich, and strong, would come and do battle for England's sake. And at last, like the dawn of a calm, fair day after a night of terror and storm, they came. My young, light-hearted countrymen, tall and gay, looking the world over in search of fun and fame. All the bands playing, over there, send the word to beware. And as the American flag went fluttering by, Englishmen uncovered, and I began to cry. How beautiful upon the mountains, how beautiful upon the downs, how beautiful in the village post office, on the pavements of the town, how beautiful in the huge print of newspapers, beautiful while telegraph wires hum, while telephone bells wildly jingle the news that peace has come. That peace has come at last, that all wars cease,